Pleased to welcome back to the program Republican Senator Dave McCormick. He is a member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Senator, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Hey, Steve, how are you?
Let me begin with this new timeline announced yesterday by the president in Scotland, perhaps 10 to 12 days for a ceasefire. What is your sense ultimately of the end game between Russia and Ukraine, a war that has been just so tragic on both ends of the nations there?
Well, I think what you're seeing is the president losing his patience. I think the framework that President Trump laid out months ago is the right framework, which is essentially Russia is the aggressor here, but we need to bring an end to the fighting. Thousands of young men and women dying every day. The best way to do that is to have a ceasefire that becomes sort of solidified. By and large, is going to be close to the borders they are now. It's to have the Europeans step up and provide a European security agreement to Ukraine, so they can be sure that if they sue for peace, that Russia is not going to rearm itself and come back in another year or two and try to take back the rest of Ukraine. This agreement between the United States and Ukraine to share critical minerals was smart. It helps pay for the investment the American people made, but more than that, it creates American investment on the ground, which is a deterrent to further Russian aggression. And so all that we need now is for one of the two parties, Russia, to come to the table. And they should do that. Putin should do that. I've been in meetings with Putin in the past. He's a tough guy. He's a stubborn guy. And I think the president's losing patience with it. And I think we in the Senate have put forward legislation that will move on, which will impose sanctions on Russia and secondary sanctions on those who do business with Russia, which will put a huge economic burden on them. And the idea of that is to bring them to the negotiating table to find a path to peace.
Senator, a tough guy with new threats aimed at the U.S. by Vladimir Putin. How seriously do we take these threats, or should we?
Well, listen, I mean, President Putin has blustered for decades, and at the same time, he's a ruthless guy. So we should take him seriously. Obviously, any nuclear power we should take seriously, with the kinds of nuclear capabilities he has, with the kind of cyber capabilities he has. So we shouldn't underestimate Putin. But the truth of the matter is, he's overextended himself. There's conscripts coming out of the woodwork in Russia because he has to continue to replace all these young people that are getting mangled and killed on the battlefield. So he has limitations on what he can do, and frankly, the opportunity in front of him now with the structure of the deal that President Trump's put forward, I think would be in Russia's best interest. So we should always take him seriously, but what's in front of him is a very thoughtful, reasonable approach to ending the conflict, and I hope he has the good sense to embrace it.
Senator, you gave your maiden floor speech on the Senate floor talking about artificial intelligence. These are your words. You said, "This moment demands bold, innovative leadership, demands a willingness to discard conventional wisdom to improve the lives of our fellow countrymen." And you were able to bring together, maybe only you could have done this, Donald Trump and Josh Shapiro, the Democratic governor of Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh. What was the ultimate goal of that, and where are you taking this?
Well, it was really a special day. My wife actually had the initial idea right after the campaign, and I called President Trump and said, I'd like to have a conference, a summit in Pittsburgh to talk about two revolutions, the energy revolution and the AI revolution. They go hand in hand, and Pittsburgh's at the crossroads. And this isn't just a Pennsylvania issue. This is America's fight. We've got to win this energy dominance game. We've got to win this AI game. And the consequences of losing to China are, really unthinkable. It could truly jeopardize our way of life. So that was the concept. And so we invited the president. His cabinet came: Bessent, Lutnick, Burgum, Wright, Lee Zeldin, David Sachs. We invited CEOs from energy, technology, and investing, which frankly had never come together for a focus on this. Political leaders from both parties, Josh Shapiro, you said, and the goal of it was to do three things. Catalyze investment. There's been lots of things percolating for a long time. Bring it together. People put their cards on the table investing in Pennsylvania. We got $92 billion of announced investments in data centers, in energy distribution, in energy operations, in energy transmission. We had Westinghouse announce construction of 10 brand new nuclear reactors by beginning no later than 2030. So this was a huge investment in Pennsylvania. The second thing, though, it did was we had 150 media people there. It was broadcast live on Bloomberg, CNBC, Fox, and so you had the whole world seeing all that Pennsylvania has to offer, and Pennsylvanians being able to tell their story. And then the third thing, which I think is what compelled the president, is I said, listen, Mr. President, when you were president in 2017, you said you were more worried about serving the people of Pittsburgh than Paris. This is going to create jobs. So the announcements we had that day is going to create tens of thousands of jobs for Pennsylvanians, with more on the way. And so it's a great success. And I think it's part of our strategy in Pennsylvania and for our country. We are dominant in energy. We need to take advantage of that. We need to continue to innovate. And we'll be dominant in AI if we continue to take advantage of our unique assets, our natural resources, our skilled labor, our technology leadership. It was hosted at CMU, Carnegie Mellon, which is one of the great technology universities in the world. So, listen, it was a great day, but we now need to keep the pressure on and keep the momentum, and nothing breeds success like success. So I want to keep it moving.
And you're back with Governor Shapiro in September, back in Pittsburgh. We're talking to Republican Senator Dave McCormick. And, Senator, I think like you and all Americans, really trying to wrap our heads around where AI is taking us. From what you learned at the summit in Pittsburgh and your own research, where is all of this heading?
Well, I think I think you have to start with a recognition. It's moving, with us or without us. Mm-hmm. So it's like a big wave, and we can get in front of the wave or we can get behind the wave. But there's a wave coming, and I think America leading the wave, America setting the standards, America being the innovators is really critical. So that's the first point. Second point, you can't have AI innovation. You can't have big data centers without energy. So energy dominance. And Pennsylvania's unique role in the world. We're the fourth largest natural gas reserves in the world. We're the second largest energy producer in America. That energy dominance gives you the fundamental ingredient you need for AI leadership. So the two go hand in hand. You'll never hear me talk about AI leadership without me talking about energy dominance. Those two are in the same sentence. They go hand in hand. That's the second thing. Third thing, it's going to be disruptive. I mean, new things are disruptive. Innovation is disruptive. Ironically, and this is just me talking, this isn't, I haven't read any studies on this or anything like that, but I think it may be more disruptive to white collar than blue collar. And in fact, when we were in Pittsburgh that day, what was clear is you can't build AI data centers, you can't have new fracking, you can't have new pipelines, you can't have new nuclear facilities without welders and electricians and pipe fitters and steam fitters. So I think we're going to see, in many ways, as part of President Trump's reindustrialization and energy dominance, you're going to see a renaissance of opportunities for skilled workers, even as AI puts pressure. You know, if you're a paralegal, if you're a lawyer, if you're a software developer, 80-90% of what you do every day is likely to go to artificial intelligence. I was with Satya Nadella a couple months ago, the CEO of Microsoft, and I said, what's the biggest change? I said, frankly, the biggest change is 80% of the software is being written by AI. So our software developers are now focused on the 20% that's the highest value added. That's going to continue to put pressure and changes on the workforce. And, you know, if we continue to innovate and grow productivity, it's going to create new opportunities. But those are some of the insights coming out of Pittsburgh.
Real quick follow-up, because when you talk about energy sources, does that include wind and solar? The president's critical of green energy, but it seems when you talk about these data centers, you need every source of power.
You do. I'm in favor of all sources. The thing that I campaigned on and I voted for, I'm not in favor of huge subsidies. I think the subsidies distort the markets. I think, ironically, they're not necessarily better for the environment, some of those forms. In fact, if you want to take on greenhouse gas emissions, the best way to do that is to develop our natural gas capability. And it's intermittent energy. So solar and wind are more dependent on the wind and the sun, obviously. But I'm in favor of all those things. And we have a robust solar industry in Pennsylvania and some wind. And we're going to need everything, all hands on deck, including nuclear, which is going to be, there's a nuclear renaissance underway. All of those we need. the government has to be careful about putting its hands on the scales. I think we need to let the market largely drive this innovation.
We're talking to Senator Dave McCormick. His other committees include energy and commerce and banking. And I suppose this is a good problem because we do have a housing crisis, especially in urban centers like Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington, D.C., and elsewhere. How do we solve the problem?
You know, it's so funny you said this, because on Friday I was in Pittsburgh with HUD Secretary Scott Turner, and we toured a bunch of affordable housing areas, and it's it's certainly one of the top 3 issues for Pennsylvania. Housing costs went up double digits last year, so it's not just buying a house, which is part of the American dream. It's also affording rent, availability of stock. The biggest issue is supply. We do not have adequate supply. A lot of it is regulations, difficulty of building. We just had a banking committee meeting today where we had a bipartisan housing bill. It's the biggest housing bill that's ever been put forward, a vote committee. It was voted out of committee 24-0, bipartisan, which was really shocking. I've not seen anything like that since I've been in the Senate. And it has all sorts of innovations to try to make housing more affordable. I introduced a number of provisions in the bill that did everything from create sort of a cross-department focus on affordable housing for veterans, which is an issue very near and dear to my heart, to all sorts of innovations around trying to incent local communities to make it much easier to build new housing stock, to a provision that essentially allows manufactured homes, which are one way to get low-cost housing available, really great housing, much more available and accessible to people across the Commonwealth, both in rural communities and urban. So there's a big focus on it. That bill will now go to the Senate floor, and I'm hoping we'll get a vote on that soon, and that's the start. But the federal government can't fix all this. Local communities play a big role, and in Pittsburgh, which, as I said, I just did a tour there, one of the biggest challenges is the government, the local government, the county government, the city, makes it hard to get permits necessary to put new housing stock in place. And so this is the kind of thing we need, a stack of reforms, local, state, and federal. Obviously lowering interest rates will make it a little bit easier. So if we get a reduction in interest rates, that makes mortgage rates a little bit easier. So that'll help. But it's a big supply problem more than a demand problem.
One other foreign policy question, because we are seeing the pictures inside the Gaza Strip. The Israeli Prime Minister saying that there is no starvation inside the Gaza Strip. President Trump clearly disagrees. The photographs also indicate the horrific conditions on the ground. What is Dave McCormick's sense?
Well, listen, you can't look at those images and not be heartbroken and feel like there's a lot of human suffering. So I think we have to acknowledge that. It could end tomorrow if Hamas gave up the hostages and sort of capitulated on its military capability following the horrific actions of October 7th. So I think what needs to happen is we need to continue to put the pressure on Hamas, get these hostages home, but we also need to double down on the efforts of the Israeli government, the U.S. government, the UN, to make sure available food is ready. When I was just in Israel a couple of weeks ago, I met with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. What they're trying to do is get the food directly in the hands of the people. Right now, by all accounts, the food is being stolen. It's being sold by Hamas. It's being used to intimidate. So we need to get the food directly into the hands of the people, which is what the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is trying to do. But it needs to move faster and be even more effective. And I think the U.S. coming in is a great idea. I think the UN needs to get this food that's spoiling on the docks into the hands of the individuals. And even as we continue to put pressure on the evilness of Hamas and make sure we eradicate that military capability, or Israel does rather, we need to continue to find ways to get that humanitarian support in the hands of those who need it.
It is heartbreaking. Dave McCormick, 6 months into the job. By the way, we had Rich McCormick, House member, saying he's never met you yet. We need to fix that, Senator.
Well, listen, maybe he's from the rich side of the family. I'm hoping if he's part of the Rich McCormick, I'll go look him up.
Sounds like a law firm, McCormick. But anyhow, Senator, thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it. I know it's a busy afternoon with Senate votes.
Yes,
Please come back again.
Yes, sir.